the Legal Corner podcast series. Welcome to today's episode of The Legal Corner, a podcast which covers a variety of legal issues to keep you informed. Hosted by Attorney-at Law Colin Denoon and Communications Specialist Leonardo Torres. It's a pleasure to be with you for another episode of the Legal Corner podcast series. Unfortunately, Colin won't be with us today due to his commitments. However, as we begin to wind down on season 2, he will join us for the next episode, as we just have a few episodes remaining for this season. Today's episode is entitled The Local Content Act of Guyana. Now, in studio with us today is Mr. Lloyd Robinson, who is a citizen of Guyana and was called to the bar in 2020. He attended the University of the West Indies Cavell campus in Barbados and the Hugh Wooding Law School in Trinidad. His areas of specialties are civil litigation and corporate services, and he practices in both Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana. Mr. Robinson, welcome to the Legal Corner podcast series. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Perfect. So, as mentioned before, the topic today is the Legal Content Act of Guyana. Can you tell us what was the rationale behind the proclamation of the Local Content Act?
Well, I think the rationale behind the Local Content Act can be found within the Local Content Act itself, specifically in its long title, the long title of the Act. And it basically says there that the Act has been enacted to promote Guyanese companies and Guyanese nationals in the procurement of goods and services within the oil and gas or the petroleum sector. So it really is an act that looks to enhance the capacity and participation of Guyanese within this new sector of Guyana.
Okay, can you outline some of the key provisions of the Act?
Well, some of the key provisions of the Act, I would say, starting from Section 2, which is the interpretation section. That section really outlines the various definitions that could be of certain terms that could be found within the Act, particularly terms such as who a contractor is, who a subcontractor is, who a licensee is. These individuals are the individuals that the Act really focuses on. Individuals who are contractors, licensees, and subcontractors within the petroleum sector. And then it speaks to the various composition of what a Guyanese company is, speaking to the obligation to include Guyanese nationals and Guyanese companies within their procurement of services and goods. And that section also defines what the Secretariat is, the Local Content Secretariat is, and how one may be able to see if they would be captured within the Act. So the interpretation section, I would say, is one of the most important sections within the Act. And then we move on to Section 6, which speaks to the registration on within the local content registry. That is really a corollary to Section 2. Seeing when we identify who are the parties that it touch and concern, it then speaks to how those parties may be able to register. And moving from Section 6, perhaps is Section 10, which really outlines or directs companies, subcontractors, and contractors, licensee, as to the submission of their local content plan, as how they plan to ensure that the local content and its objects are given way to it in their doing of business. All right. So I would say that is an important section. And also the sections with respect to procurement, how these companies go about their procurement. Section 13 and 14 really touch and concern those areas of procurement. So we have Section 10 speaking about their capacity building, and then Section 13 and 14 speaking about procurement, which really is where the focus of the Local Content Act, the focus on procurement and focus on capacity building between Guyanese and the individuals and companies that are doing business within the petroleum sector. And then, last but not least, I would say Section 23, which outlines the penal clauses in relation to the Act in the event that the obligations of the Act aren't given way, and speaks to the level of exposure that a contractor, subcontractor, or licensee may have if they are non-compliant with the provisions of the Local Content Act. So I would say those are the more important provisions of the Act.
Okay, thanks for that very in-depth explanation outlining all of those key provisions. It sounds like a very broad act. Can you indicate if all of the subsectors of the oil and gas sector are regulated by this act?
To answer the question simply, the answer is no. Not all sectors of the oil and gas sector are included within the act. Schedule 1 of the Act specifically outlines 40 areas that the Act focuses on. And those are really areas where I believe the legislature would want to see enhanced activities with the Guyanese and those contractors, subcontractors, and licensee operating within the oil and gas sector.
Okay, so at this point, we'll take a quick commercial break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Legal Corner podcast series. Thank you for staying with us. So right before the break, we were talking about mainly some of the key provisions of the Local Content Act of Guyana right now. And our guest is still with us, Mr. Lloyd Robinson. We want to basically segue into a different aspect of the conversation now. So would you say this act is discriminatory towards non-nationals?
I was anticipating a question like this coming, and I was thinking to myself, how would I be able to answer it? But really and truly, I guess why people at the surface level may say that, hey, this act, on the face of it, looks discriminatory towards non-national. But I would disagree with that statement. I would say what the act does is that the act empowers national so that they could be on equal footing or standing, and so as they could engage non-nationals, and really and truly, it promotes the relationship between them. It fosters business growth between them, and it energizes the business relationship. So I wouldn't say it necessarily that is non-discriminatory to non-nationals, because all it's really saying is non-nationals, hey, you're looking to do business within the oil and gas sector, the petroleum sector, partner with Guyanese as you engage that journey.
Okay, understood. Now, Guyana is, of course, part of the CARICOM, and we also part of the CSME as well. What's the cohesion now with the ACT in terms of fitting in with the region's thrust for the CARICOM single market and economy?
Thank you for that question. That's a very good question. Now, we need to take a step back and ask ourselves, what really is CARICOM single market and economy? And we need to ask ourselves, that treaty, the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, how should we really look at that treaty in determining how we interpret it and how it operates? And in considering that, I would take guidance from the Caribbean Court of Justice in its judgment, TCL Inc. against TCL Guyana Inc., where essentially in that case, the jurisprudence that comes out of it is essentially says, hey, when we look at the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, we should take a teleological approach, looking to give way to the spirit of the treaty so as to render the articles effective. That's essentially what that case says. We look to give way to the spirit of the treaty. And when we think of the spirit of the treaty, I would submit and I would argue strongly that the spirit of the CARICOM revised treaty is really integration. Integration. And when we look at what the Local Content Act is doing, right, the Local Content Act is actually promoting integration, because what it's saying is that, hey, a CARICOM national or national companies, for example, from Jamaica, from Trinidad, hey, you're looking to come and develop or work or have business within the petroleum sector in Guyana, come and get integrated with Guyanese in your quest to bring about those business opportunities and to have the benefit to the CARICOM nation that is Guyana. So in my view of it, the Local Content Act is really giving way to that spirit of integration in terms of as it empowers, enables, and mandates partnership of nationals, well, CARICOM nationals, that is.
Okay, thanks for that explanation. As we begin to pull the curtain down on this very important episode, regarding the Act itself, are there any proposed changes, any objections in any of the quarters in Guyana as it relates to this Act? What can you tell us about it?
I mean, there is a lot of noise all around. A lot of people would be saying a lot of things about the Act. But really and truly, I don't think that enough time has progressed for us to be able to gather enough information as to how the Act is operating, who are the participants that are subject to the Act, and what are the fallouts or what are the benefits. I don't think that we are at the stage just yet to gather that type of information. And because we don't have that information, any comment would not necessarily be any deep analysis of the situation. So I would say that maybe that question is a bit premature at this stage.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is that it's a little bit too early for changes, and a lot of what is being said right now, it's some noise in certain quarters, but it's early days still.
Correct, essentially.
So let me follow it up with this question now. Do you see, from your professional view, of course, any concerns with the Act? Any ways that it can be improved?
What I can say, that the Act, its operation really turns on how the Local Content Secretariat implements the Act, and I'm hopeful to see that particular organism that is a creature of the Act taking fully the reins to ensure that the spirit of the Act, which is participation of Guyanese within the oil and gas sector, the enhancement of capacity building within the oil and gas sector, those things aren't just numbers on a piece of paper so as to the composition of the company, share ownership or the managerial staff or whatever, but it really gives life to the objects of the Act. So I wouldn't necessarily say that I would recommend a change, but I would want to see greater vigilance within the local local content secretariat.
Well said. All right, so we have come to the end of today's episode. We want to thank you for not only your time, but your wealth of knowledge on this very important topic, particularly for Guyanese and the wider region. And we hope to see you as a guest again on the Legal Corner podcast series in the very near future, maybe on a similar topic, or maybe another Guyanese topic that might be topical at the point in time. So again, thank you for your time. It was a pleasure having you on the Legal Corner podcast series. Thank you very much.
No problem at all. Anytime, just send the invitation.
Thank you for listening to the Legal Corner podcast series. For more information, please visit us at our Facebook or Instagram pages, or send your comments to thelegalcornerpodcast@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you.